The life you are living right now was built by a version of you that no longer exists. Think about that for a moment. Every result you are currently experiencing, every relationship you are in, every financial reality you are navigating, every pattern you keep returning to, no matter how many times you promise yourself you are done with it, was built by decisions that person made, by standards that person accepted, by habits that person allowed to become normal, by a version of yourself that you may have already outgrown in your thinking, but whose consequences you are still living in your daily life. And here is the thing that most men never fully grasp. You cannot change your results without first changing the identity that produced them. Not your habits, not your discipline, not your routine, your identity, who you fundamentally believe yourself to be. Because your habits are just expressions of that identity. And until the identity changes, the habits will always drift back to where they came from. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly how to make that change, and exactly why everything you have tried before this moment has not been enough. Marcus Aurelius wrote something in his private journals that most people misread as self-criticism. He wrote that he was constantly at war with himself, that the man he was today was not yet the man he needed to become, that his current character still carried the fingerprints of every weaker version of himself that came before. Most people read this as the confession of a man who was failing. I read it as the practice of a man who was becoming. Because what Marcus understood, that most men never discover, is that the work of becoming is never finished. That there is no arrival point where you have finally outrun every version of yourself that came before. Those versions do not disappear. They leave consequences. They leave patterns. They leave defaults that your nervous system returns to under pressure. And the work of a man who is genuinely growing is not to pretend those versions never existed. It is to become conscious enough, deliberate enough, and disciplined enough to choose differently than those versions would have chosen. Every single day, until the new choice becomes the new default. Here is the specific way that the man you used to be is costing you right now. He set the standard. Whatever he accepted as normal became your baseline. The level of relationship he tolerated, the level of income he settled for, the level of discipline he maintained or failed to maintain, the level of respect he accepted from the people around him, the level of honesty he demanded from himself. All of that became the floor of your current life. And here is what most men never understand about floors. You cannot build higher than your floor without first raising it. Every time you try to create a better result without changing the standard underneath it, you eventually drift back down to where the floor is. Because the floor is where your identity is anchored. The man who grew up accepting chaos will recreate chaos even in peaceful environments. The man who normalized scarcity will sabotage abundance when it arrives. The man who learned that he was not worthy of being chosen will undermine relationships that try to choose him, not because he wants to, but because the old version set a standard, and the nervous system is always working to return to what it recognizes as normal. Raising the floor is the only work that produces permanent change. The Stoics had a concept they called prohairesis, your faculty of choice. The ability to decide who you are going to be in any given moment, regardless of what the previous version of you would have done. Epictetus was a slave, literally owned by another man, with no freedom over his body or his circumstances. But he taught that prohairesis, the power to choose your response, your character, your identity in each moment, was never something that could be enslaved. That no external circumstance, no previous version of yourself, no pattern inherited from your past, had the power to determine who you chose to be right now, unless you surrendered that power to it. This is the most important thing most men never fully internalize. The old version of you does not own you. He shaped you. He produced consequences you are still navigating. He left defaults you are still overriding. But he does not own what you choose in this moment. That has always been yours. Here is the practical reality of identity change that most people get completely wrong. They try to change their behavior first. They set new habits, new routines, new disciplines. And for a few weeks, sometimes a few months, it works. The new behavior holds. The new results begin to appear. And then, slowly, almost invisibly, the drift begins. The old patterns reassert themselves. The new routine falls apart. The new results begin to reverse. And the man is left more defeated than before, because now he has evidence that even trying doesn't work, that he is somehow fundamentally broken, that the old version has won again. But the problem was never the behavior. The problem was that the behavior was never connected to a new identity. He was trying to act like a different man, while still fundamentally believing he was the old one. The Stoics understood this completely. Marcus Aurelius did not ask himself every morning what new habit he should practice. He asked himself what kind of man he was going to be today, what his values were, what his character demanded of him. Not as aspirations, as identity statements, as declarations of who he already was, and therefore how he would behave. The behavior followed the identity. It was never the other way around. Here is how you begin the process of genuine identity change right now. You find the specific beliefs that the old version held about himself, and you challenge every single one of them with evidence from your own life. The old version believed he was not disciplined. Find every piece of evidence in your history that contradicts that. Every morning you showed up when you didn't want to. Every commitment you kept when it was hard. Every time you chose the difficult thing over the comfortable one. Use that evidence to argue against the old belief until the belief weakens. The old version believed he was not worthy of more. Find every piece of evidence that contradicts that too. Every person who chose you. Every moment someone recognized something in you worth valuing. Every time your insight or your character produced a result that proved the old belief wrong. You are building a new case file. Not with affirmations, not with wishful thinking, but with actual evidence from your actual life that the old version story about who you are was always incomplete. There is a specific moment that happens in the life of every man who successfully makes this transition. A moment where the old version's voice becomes just that. A voice. Not a verdict. Not an authority. Not a command he has to obey. Just a familiar voice offering a familiar option. And he recognizes it, names it, and chooses differently. Not because he has finally suppressed it, not because he has beaten it into silence, but because he has built a new identity strong enough that the old option simply does not fit anymore. The way a man who has genuinely changed his diet can be offered junk food and feel no real pull toward it. Not because he is white-knuckling his resistance, but because his identity no longer includes being the person who eats it. That is the level of identity change the Stoics were after. And that is the level available to you. Not someday. Now. in the choices you make today about who you are deciding to be. Here is the final thing I need you to understand before this video ends. You are not stuck because of what the old version of you did. You are only stuck if you continue to let him make today's decisions. Every moment is a new election. And in that election, you get to vote for who you are, not who you were, not who people expect you to be based on your history, not who the old version would have been in this moment, but who you are choosing to be, right now, in this specific situation, with this specific opportunity to do it differently. The man you used to be built the life you are currently living. And the man you are deciding to become, starting today, will build the life that is still possible. That life is real. It is waiting. But it cannot be built by the old version. It requires the new one. Become him. Not someday. Today. In the next decision you make after this video ends. If this landed where it was supposed to, subscribe. We build here every single week. Drop a comment. What is one thing the old version of you accepted that the new version absolutely refuses to? See you in the next one.